Hi, Tim Stokes here with this special DISC personality profile training. When it comes to success and happiness in business or in life, there's no more important subject to study than people. And after 28 years of intense personal development, I've found there's one subject above all else you can study to dramatically improve your understanding and therefore success with people. Our personality has blind spots. They hold you back at work and in life because we simply don't know what we don't know. The challenge is we think a certain way and then naturally expect others to think like we do too, but that thinking causes friction, frustration, and all kinds of missed opportunities for money making and happiness in all our relationships. The one area of study to greatly increase understanding about people is a personality profile system you've probably already heard of called DISC profiles. DISC profiles work simply like this. There are people that are more outgoing and there are people that are more reserved. And the people that are outgoing are a bit like this runner. They're very quick at getting off the blocks, running, going in a direction and also changing direction very, very quickly. And that's what they're like. This is what we call the dominant or influence profiles. Because they're great at starting things and getting out of the block and changing direction, that means they're not so great at some other areas, which is their blind spots. They're not so great at finishing, attention to detail, quality control, scheduling, planning, and that's what the reserved people are stronger with. They're more like the ocean liner, where they're a bit slow to get started, but they gather a lot of momentum and they stay the course. They stay straight on target and they're slowly building momentum. And these are what we call the compliant or steady people. That stands for DISC or DISC profiles. The D and C profiles are what we call task oriented. They're more independent. They like to work on their own, do tasks on their own. And then we have the influence steady people who are more people oriented. They like to talk in their workplace environment and work with people. So this preference of working independently or on your own can create some challenges because of a workplace environment. This ability to start something and quick and like to multitask and do more than one thing at a time is this great strength for D and I profiles, but they're not so great at the finishing attention and completion. The compliant steady are not so quick at getting out of the blocks and starting and initiating, but they like their schedules. They're excellent with time and sticking to things that they start to finish them off. Now, this is a very simple summary of DISC profiles because there's actually more than 4 profiles. There's really 8. So let me introduce you to the other 4 profiles of DISC profiles. Outgoing is not 100% accurate and nor is reserved in describing people in their DISC profiles. We have to consider something called introversion and extroversion as well. And what I found is, through a lot of research and profiling thousands of people for over 17 or 18 years, is that about 20% of D&I profiles are actually introverted. So outgoing is not an appropriate terminology for them. And 20% of S and C profiles are extroverted. So you can meet people that are extroverted S's and C's. You can meet people that are D and I profiles that are introverted. And it often makes it a little bit harder to pick which profile you're talking to once you start to learn a lot more about DISC profiles. So what I will do now is go through a little bit more detail on each of the profiles so you can see some of the strengths and weaknesses of each profile and have a better understanding of yourself from this exercise. So the dominant D, I'm going to talk about them in business owner terms because what I found through working with 1,000 plus business owner clients is that people are very, very true to their nature and that's what holds them back in business. They can't see their blind spots, you could say. So irrespective of industry, I find businesses have the same strengths and weaknesses based on that personality of the business owner. So the dominant D business owner, they're very straight with people, but sometimes that sees them as being arrogant in other people's eyes. They put staff under constant pressure because they're driven to achieve goals. Out of all the profiles, they're extremely goal-orientated and the other profiles are not as much goal-orientated. Often intimidate staff and often they don't speak up because of that natural ability to just intimidate people because of their confidence that they exude. They're goal-orientated. They can't say no to a challenge. I remember meeting a business owner client that had gone from $8 million turnover to $20 million turnover in a year. And I met him at that point. And I said, how come you grew so fast? And he said, well, they kept giving me more work and I just couldn't say no to it. And that's an example. But unfortunately, his business was hemorrhaging. His profit margins were decreasing dramatically, and he actually had cash flow crisis situations in his business because he couldn't say no to that challenge. So excellent at saying yes to a challenge, but sometimes that can be a detriment. Sometimes they lack patience. In fact, out of all the profiles, these have the least amount of patience because they're frustrated that they can't achieve their goals quick enough. And they often end up doing what other people should do, and then sometimes they complain because people aren't doing enough, because they lack that patience to just let other people take up some of the slack and support them. Does this sound like anyone that you know? Let's talk about the influence I business owner. They're great talkers, and they can often be talked into buying things from people that they call mates. They get to know a person really, really quickly, very, very easily. They have the gift of the gab, you could say. So they get to know people really quickly. They make friends, they like to be liked, and they can be a little bit soft because they like to be popular and well liked by people. They like variety, they adapt to change, but sometimes that can become a bit of a weakness because they can be a little bit inconsistent with people around them, like employees and sometimes even with customers. They're great with spontaneity, follow through, often lacking. So they don't always finish what they're starting because they love doing new things. They love variety so much. They're great with spontaneity, but that spontaneity ability or that ability to start something new can get in the way of actually finishing and following through. They talk easily, but sometimes they forget what they said because they talk so much. Does this high profile description remind you of anyone that you know? The steady S business owner. Let's have a look at them. Very caring, but sometimes too much for bad stuff. I've had a few conversations with business owner clients, or quite a few S-profile business clients over the years, and it's funny how I have the same conversation irrespective of industry. Sometimes I'll say, that person that doesn't seem to be working out, how long are you going to keep him on for? And sometimes the conversation has been, well, yeah, I know I should put him off. And my next question with a couple of my clients was, well, you caught them stealing, so why are they still working for you? You know that they're not doing the right thing. You know that they're not honest. You know they're not trustworthy. Why are they still working for you? And sometimes they'll say, because I'm worried they may not be able to get a job. Now, only the S profile will I have this conversation with because they're very, very caring. They're very team-orientated, rarely criticizing staff who need it. They like others to initiate new challenges and then follow through. So they like people to break the ice. That's what they're great at, supporting others. Very caring, but others often don't see it because they're not very emotionally expressive people. The D's are fairly emotionally expressive. The I's are very emotionally expressive, and often the C's, but the S's are not so much. So other people often don't see that they're caring. Their lack of assertiveness leads to low cash flow issues or low cash in the bank challenges. They don't put enough pressure on their employees all the time because they like to maintain that status quo. Because there's not enough pressure on them, they're not really performing at their best. They tend to go a bit casual about it, and sometimes that causes those money issues. The other thing is they don't like to complain, so they don't like to put pressure on people that owe them money too, so they often won't put that pressure on to bring that money in. Does this sound like anyone you know in business? Alright, now let's have a look at the last one, the compliant C business owners. They like attention to detail, but that means sometimes they miss the big picture of what they're trying to achieve. They love schedules, routines, but they're not so people orientated. So sometimes they like their schedules and routine, and that means they're not often as accommodating they could be to help other people out. They like to do the same work over and over and over and over. They're often perfectionists. They just love doing the same thing and perfecting and improving. Like to plan and work their plan. Not so big into spontaneity. So sometimes they stick with things too long. And if you've heard the saying, flogging a dead horse, sometimes the C's can be like this. They sometimes stick to something too much because they're not so keen on initiating new areas, new developments, new tasks, new procedures, new methodologies. They work to very high standards, but sometimes too high for all their other employees that can't quite understand the quality they're trying to achieve and aim for. Does this sound like anyone that you know in business? Understanding disc profile graphs. I'm just going to touch on this briefly. There are two sides to it. You can get 2 and 3 and 4 graph systems, but I prefer the 2 graph system. It's nice and simple, and I like that KISS principle applied to disc profiles. So what you see is 4 dots on a page and on 4 different lines, and that stands for DISC. So the highest point on this graph is on the D line. The next highest plotted point would be on the I line, and then the S and C are below, or probably 0 on the graph results. So what you have here I would describe as a DI profile. That's work mode. Over here we have the right hand graph, and the right hand graph has the highest plotted point as I, and next highest is D, the next highest as C, and then below the line is S. I would describe this person as an IDC because that's the order of priority of what their behavior is going to demonstrate. So what you're looking at here is what they're like at work. They're a DI at work, but under pressure or out of workplace environments, more relaxed environments, they're going to be an IDC. And understanding this gives you incredibly powerful leadership ability and influence over people to know what a person responds to under pressure, what profile shape their graph changes to under pressure. In this case, this person would talk more, but their attention to detail would go up dramatically. That's what would happen. So is that something you would want in the person? If it is, in the role that you need them in, then it would be advisable to put them under pressure. For some people, you never want to put them under pressure because their profile shape indicates that would be a very big mistake to do, because you won't get better output, you'll get worse. And it's really important to know this, not only about yourself, so you manage your business better, but also the people that work for you as well and you work with. DISC profiles have huge applications to workplace environments. Let me give you an example. It's extremely powerful and used for recruitment because certain profiles have a certain aptitude. As I said initially, D's and I's are great at initiating, so they're great in areas where decisions need to be made fast. That's their natural aptitude to certain roles or tasks in a business. It's fantastic for supervisor selection, which profiles have the best leadership aptitude, and typically it's the D's and I's for that reason. Systems. Each profile ability to follow them is essential that you understand. So to me, you systemize a role in the business based on the ideal DISC profile you'll put in that role. And the level and depth of the systems that you apply are absolutely dependent on which DISC profile suits that role. Some people, the worst thing you can do is give them the full proceduralized role. Other people, all they need is a process. Other people need checklists. So understanding DISC profiles becomes that 20% of the humanizing element of systemizing a business. 80% systems, 20% human skills. Selling. People buy from people they relate to and or like. And that is simply a fact. People buy from people they trust, have a rapport with, or relate to. It doesn't always have to be likability, it's relatability. And your ability to sell has a massive impact on your DISC profiles. By putting a different person in sales that has a better aptitude for sales, we watch businesses sometimes increase sales 50% in a month just by putting a better profile in that role. So putting those round pegs in round holes makes a massive difference to your ability to succeed in business by understanding DISC profiles. The other thing about DISC profiles, it gives you incredibly accurate predictions of behavior. You can start to predict where people will behave a certain way in a certain situation or certain circumstance. You already know what they're going to finish. You know what they're going to avoid. You know so much about what they're like under pressure, whether you should put them under pressure, whether you shouldn't. You know where they're likely to let you down, where they're not. And it's got huge applications for all facets of workplace environments and even at home. Even raising children, knowing DISC profiles of children gives you enormous insights into how to be a better parent. It's the best tool you can find in the marketplace to improve your people skills, and very rapidly. Unfortunately, it's been a little bit too commercialized, which means if you want to learn about it, you got to go and buy a profile. And then if you want to learn about someone who works for you, you got to buy another profile. So it's not really being taught. I prefer to teach people about DISC profiles so you understand how to pick people's DISC profiles on the phone in seconds, and then know how best to sell to that profile based on knowing their profile, and then learning it as a tool that you improve your knowledge of DISC profile, not by buying lots of reports. I think that's a better use for it myself. Want to learn a lot more about DISC profiles? I'm scratching the surface of how big this subject is. Jump on our invitation list for more exciting insights into how to improve your business through profittransformations.com/people skills or learngrowsucceed.net, and subscribe. Get on our invitation list for exciting insights into how to improve your success in life and business. Thanks for watching.